Now's the time of year where every YouTuber who talks about languages decides to take advantage of your annual recommitment to learning a new language. Since I started publishing videos regularly about a year ago, I've actually been looking forward to this video because despite the seemingly infinite number of videos on this topic, I still feel like I have something to say that I don't hear too often. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Daniel. I work as an interpreter and a translator, and I've been learning languages for over half my life. I speak to varying degrees English, French, Spanish, Haitian Creole, and Portuguese. And while I don't have a PhD in linguistics or anything like that, linguistics is a topic that's been fascinating to me for as long as I can remember, and I've really seen in my personal language learning how applying linguistic principles can be super useful. So today I'd like to talk about 3 tips that have really helped me in my language learning journey and how you can apply them in yours. In recent years, I feel like the latest language learning craze has been methods based on Stephen Krashen's philosophy of comprehensible input. And honestly, I think that's great in the sense that it's ended up producing tons and tons of accessible, easy to listen to content, and having content that's both interesting and accessible. In other words, it's at a level that you could understand is essential to improving your receptive language skills. But unfortunately, I have kind of a bone to pick with the underlying thesis of the comprehensible input philosophy. According to The Natural Approach by Krashen and Tracy Terrell, the most important and useful theoretical point is the acquisition-learning distinction. So, as they define it, becoming fluent and comfortable in a language is better referred to as language acquisition rather than language learning. And they use the term language learning to refer specifically to consciously learning grammar rules. And for them, when we speak and understand a language well and easily, it's basically never the result of conscious grammar learning, but rather it's a result of so-called natural language acquisition. As a matter of fact, learning grammar rules basically only serves as a monitor or a way for you to double check your work as you're producing speech. And to me, that happens to just sound like total nonsense. Like, I don't disagree that you need a lot of input to be able to fully integrate and feel fluent in a language, but disregarding learning grammar rules feels like teaching someone to drive without ever telling them the rules of the road, just like expecting them to pick it up through observation. And of course, when someone's learning to drive, observing other drivers who know what they're doing is an important part of the process. But I don't think it's necessary to disregard any effort to learn how a car operates or how you're supposed to drive. And to be fair, one of the things that Krashen points out frequently is that language learning is different from other skills in that we have parts of our brain that are especially hardwired for learning a language. So it's understandable that you might observe that it functions differently than other skills you might learn. But the thing is, from my own personal experience, I just don't find that to be the case. Learning grammar rules, learning the ways that languages differ from one another, the specific ways that they construct words, has been a super useful tool for me personally. For example, in a language I'm learning, if I encounter a new structure that I've never seen before, I'll look up whatever rule causes that structure to function the way it does, see what special meanings maybe that structure carries, practice formulating my own sentences using new words but using the same structure, and then I'll use those sentences in conversations to see if people interpret them the way that I mean them, and then I'll continue listening for more examples that corroborate the way I think that it works or that contradict the way that I think it works. So in that process, comprehensible input was a very important first step, but there was also explicit language research, there was memorization, there was practice, and then there's more comprehensible input after that. And the truth is, you're not a baby, so you're not going to be able to learn a language in exactly the same way that a baby does. And as a matter of fact, you have a ton of advantages that babies don't have. You have an entire life, presumably, I don't know how old you are, but however old you are, you've been learning to recognize patterns and applying rules creatively to solve problems. Those are the same skills that you can use to improve in a language. And ignoring that ridiculously OP skill set seems, I don't know, pointless and like a waste of time to me. So my practical recommendation, and I know this is not going to be for everyone, but I promise just give it a try and see if it's for you. If you're interested in a new language, look up the Wikipedia article for it and go to the section on grammar. And if you're lucky, there'll even be a whole article that talks about the grammar of that language. And just look for ways that it differs from your language. And if there's ways that are significant or that people comment on being particularly hard, take note of those. And as you're going forward in your language learning, look for examples of those things. And I know some people can get super scared off by the terminology they use in linguistics, but honestly, once you understand like the underlying concept of what they're talking about, the big words aren't really that scary. So this next one's easy, so I'll keep it short. You hear a new expression that you're not familiar with, Repeat it to yourself as you're making dinner. You have a word or a sequence of words that always trips you up whenever you try to pronounce them. Repeat them over and over as you're taking a shower. Did you just learn a new grammatical structure that you weren't familiar with before? Well, practice making new sentences in your head using that same structure but with new words. I'm a person who happens to have a constantly running internal monologue, and without really even thinking about it or putting in conscious effort, I've hijacked that internal monologue to make language practice something I don't even have to think about. So try doing that. It might help. One thing I'm super grateful about in my life is that I've lived in places where there's a lot of people from other countries and opportunities to practice language, and I've had the opportunity to travel to different countries where the languages I'm learning are spoken. But to be able to benefit from those opportunities, you have to be a little bit willing to put yourself in uncomfortable positions, even though that can be hard. One of the best examples that I know personally is a guy who started learning Haitian Creole when he was 19. It's a 6'2" white dude who you would not think would fit into the community, but he embraced it so much, and I've seen him make amazing language progress. Like, you'd see him down at the Haitian barbershop just like chopping it up with the dudes over there. So yeah, putting yourself in uncomfortable positions is not only a way to grow when it comes to languages, but it's a really great way to grow in general. And sure, sometimes you might end up getting robbed in Ecuador, but it's worth it, I think. Okay, so those are the couple of tips that I wanted to share. This isn't like a comprehensive guide to learning a language or anything like that. There are definitely more comprehensive videos out there that get into methods for memorization, ways to test yourself, spaced repetition, all that good stuff. These were just a couple of tips that I don't hear people talking about as much that I think are super helpful. And to talk a little bit about my goals for this year, last year I had set the goal of getting to a solid C1, maybe even C2 in Spanish and French, and that did not happen at all. It was kind of a crazy year, and even in the best of times, I have trouble focusing and like working towards a difficult goal. So to make things a little bit simpler this year, I'm going to take the first half of the year to really focus on French. I'll still be doing a little bit of Spanish in the background, but I'll really be focusing on trying to improve my French, because getting from the upper intermediate to the really, really advanced level is super difficult. And since in particular, I struggle with advanced comprehension, like watching a series or a movie, it's super easy for me to get lost. I'm going to focus exactly on that. I'll try listening to videos and movies that are really at natural speed. And if there's stuff I don't catch the first time, I'll try and make note of it and test myself on them later. And in addition, I actually just recently moved to an area where there's tons and tons of Portuguese speakers. So I'll be trying to improve my Portuguese a little bit too. But since they're at such different levels, my French and my Portuguese, there shouldn't be too much interference. But we'll see how that goes. But as we go through the year, if anyone's interested how those goals are going, let me know. I can maybe do an update. And if you guys have any goals for this year, feel free to share them in the comments and let me know if there's any tips that you've applied that you found helpful that you don't find people talking about very much. Oh, and let me know your thoughts on studying grammar. Do you think it's a waste of time, or do you think it's a waste of time to avoid studying grammar? Or would you rather stick to like a pure comprehensible input method, even if it's much, much, much slower? Anyway, thanks for watching. See you on the next one. Bye.